So let's start with the Glock 34 first, and then we got to remove this RMR. I almost Loctited it in the other day, and then I realized that I needed to put sights on it. All right, so now we're gonna take a look at our dovetail right up here. Sometimes these dovetails, depending on, if it's OEM or aftermarket, sometimes these dovetails can be a little bit incorrectly sized. So we just definitely need to ensure that our rear sight is gonna go into place without a whole lot of resistance. For this one, we're gonna be installing some Ameriglows. And Ameriglows are one of those kind of sights where they're very easy to install, meaning you don't have to really do a whole lot of fitting with them. Something to keep in mind with Ameriglows is the rear dovetail is hollow. So if you install these and uninstall them off of too many guns, this dovetail will kind of collapse in on itself and you'll have to buy a new rear sight. Just keep in mind though, I mean, they're great sights, but just keep in mind that it is a set it and forget them type of sight. Once you've taken them off about 2 or 3 different slides, this is really close to being collapsed in. That's what happened to one set that I have already. The way I'm gonna get started, we got 2 different sight tools right here. This is the Vism. This is actually, I think this is made by NC Star. I've actually had this one for a while now, and this is probably gonna be your safest and probably best bang for your buck, budget-friendly sight pusher. They're around $40. However, I will say this, I did attempt to push some sights that needed to be fitted, and I broke both of these ears. However, Vism saw my post on Instagram and instantly sent me a message and said, we got to get you a new block out. And they do have a warranty on them, so it's no questions asked if you do break any of their stuff. So that's about $40 to $45. And then right here, this is the MGW Sight Tool. This thing makes life a million times easier than any other sight pusher that I've ever used. When you pick these up, you get, I think you can choose which type of block you want to have already installed. And then if you have different types of guns, you can just buy individual blocks here for different style stuff like M&Ps or SIG P229, stuff like that. But this has worked for all of my guns so far, so been very impressed with it. And this one, you'll see, it's the most expensive one, but I would say buy once, cry once. Unless you're on an extreme budget, then get one of these. Whatever you do, don't buy one of those crappy square universal ones that you see on eBay and stuff. I had one, it was just so difficult. I ended up breaking it pretty quickly. I'm gonna be using a little bit of this shooter lube. This is some stuff I've been using for a while to clean my guns, 2-step system. I do have coupon codes for this. So for everything that you see in this video, just check the first link down in the description if you're watching this on YouTube. I put a little bit of lube on this rear rail. I'm just gonna wipe the excess off. We don't need a lot. We just want to make sure that this rear sight, like this, and so that's what we're going to do. I have noticed though that it doesn't really matter which way you go, but just find a system that works for you and then stick with that and you'll be fine. All right, so with this Vism here, we're just going to back out these side pads. We're going to raise up this back one over here. Then we're going to turn this to the left a little bit. Just like so, and just like that. Then we're going to turn this bottom piece and raise it up so that this will sit flush, if that makes sense. All right, cool. So we got it to where this rear sight is barely lifted off of this base. You don't want it completely lifted off, but you don't want it dragging either. So it's a little bit of a tedious process here. See if you can see that. Just a tiny little gap between this and the rear sight. Now we're gonna lock down our rear pads here, okay? Then we're also gonna be locking down this front one right here. All right. And what that'll do is that'll put a little downward pressure on the slide just to keep it from moving. Then we're gonna just start turning this, and they almost went on a little too easy, which hopefully I don't need a different set of sights. A lot of people also wonder, what is the real big difference between Trijicon and Ameriglow? And pretty much everything. The quality of Trijicons are way better. Their rear sight isn't hollowed out like this one, so you can take them on and off many guns as many times as you like. So no issues with that. Now we need to test. I think it's going to have to come right a little bit more, but we need to test and make sure that this is centered. The way I do that is I take a long, flat ruler, I lay it against the slide, and I measure from this side to my dovetail. Well, I don't know where I put my hammer, so I'm going to use this wrench to bang on this punch a little bit. All right, that should be good. Let's take a look. These rear sights are a little bit loose. And so what we're going to do to kind of counteract that is I got some red Loctite right here. I don't know if this is the same as the red Loctite brand. These actually came with my XS sights. I'm going to put a tiny little bit down into this dovetail over here. And what that'll do is once we get this centered up, that will lock them into place. All right, so we got a little bit of Loctite on the rear. You're gonna wipe that off with your finger just to make sure you don't have any on the actual slide. But that looks really centered. So now let's move to the front sight. Now some sight systems come with a front sight tool, some don't. So I always suggest getting these little sight tools. I really like this one. There is one that is made that looks like a screwdriver. That one, I just don't like it as much, although it's easier to grip. It just doesn't hold the nut of the front sight as easily like this one does. If you didn't catch that, we just took the screw out. Now I'm gonna set this on just like that, and it's gonna hold that screw right there. We're just gonna take a little bit of this red Loctite. This is made for sights, so I'm not telling you to go get red Loctite. This actually is made for sights. For sights, if I'm using the actual name brand of Loctite, I actually just use blue because blue is removable. And I put a little bit right there on the blade, okay? Sometimes if you have a Cerakoted slide, it can stick a little bit, just a little, not too much, because you can snap these screws. Now let's look at our front blade. Make sure that it is parallel and not kinked. Looks good to me. All right, so we got the longer one on the left side, the shorter one on this side, so it doesn't interfere for that extractor plunger spring right here. I'll slave the dot to the front sight, then I'll go out to the range and I'll do a 45-yard zero. And because there have been times in the past where I just slaved it to the front sight and I didn't realize how far off I was. I was shooting really high, and then I went to did a 45-yard zero, everything was good. I will put a link below where you can actually find like Trijicon RMR zeroing targets. I mean, it doesn't matter what red dot you use with them, but they were originally designed for the Trijicon RMR, but any red dot will work with those targets. So highly recommend those. Make sure the trigger is functioning okay, because a lot of times this thing right here, if it gets any pressure put on it with this screw, it will mess with that safety plunger that's on the bottom of your slide right here. And so I want to make sure there's no interference whatsoever, and we're getting a decent co-witness. So now let's move on to the Gen 5 and install those sights. So I'm running the Apex trigger, one of my favorites for the Gen 5, and I just got these really cool mag releases from Tyrant CNC. Literally just got it, works for Gen 4 or Gen 5. There'll be links below for everything if you guys want any of this stuff. But I want to show you that real quick. All right, so like I said earlier, we're only gonna be using this sight pusher for the rest of the duration just because of how easy and awesome it is. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna do the rear sight. We're gonna take this, set it in, lock down this plate. All right. We're gonna go left to right, taking this rear sight off. It's really easy. Usually what happens is when I do uninstall these sights, that little metal piece on the bottom gets 100% destroyed. Now I'm gonna wipe off any residue here, wipe off any residue in here. You can clean this with alcohol. A lot of people suggest it. I'm just not going to because I'm just not that anal. All right, so fiber optic sights can be a little bit tricky, guys, when you're installing them, because you actually have to install the fiber optic rod yourself. So these are the Angry Bear sights right here. We'll do a review on these later. Comes with a red and a green fiber optic rod. Got a couple of set screws and an Allen head, and rear sight here, it's completely blacked out. It does have a set screw right there, which I love. I wish every single set of sights put a set screw in it. And then we get 3 different height front sights. And I'm just gonna go with like, I'm just gonna go with the medium one. So we have this from left to right, from smallest to largest. The smallest one, I believe, is 175 thousandths. The medium one's 195 thousandths. And then the tall one is a 215 thousandths. If you Google like front sight height calculator, it will actually tell you at what distance your gun needs to be zeroed. Same thing here. We're gonna get this rear sight just started as possible. Looks pretty close. I will get that fixed up later, like I showed you guys earlier on how to make sure that it's properly centered. So I just double checked that with the calipers and it is pretty darn close to being perfectly centered. We're gonna take our set screw here. I'm gonna put a dab of this Loctite on here. Just a dab, it doesn't gotta be a lot. And now we're gonna put that down into here. Installed, now we can just do the front sight. And like I mentioned, we're gonna be doing the medium size sight. So I'm just gonna do what I did before, just a tiny little bit of Loctite on this hole. See, when it's not Cerakoted, you know, that front sight doesn't stay in place as easily. Now this one actually comes with this is a punch. So if you don't have a sight pusher, it actually comes with this and you can put it in a vise and bang the rear sight in. I don't like doing that. It's too easy to break it. They also include a front sight and a rear sight punch. So you get a front sight tool, rear sight punch. So now let's take our little bitty guy right here, okay? Set it into the tool. I'm gonna take a little bit of Loctite, get it into place, start turning it. If we look down at our slide here, we can see that this isn't completely square. It's pushed a little bit to the right. So I'm gonna just twist it a little bit to the left. So now that those are installed, I think I'm gonna go with the red right here, is we're gonna insert this, I believe, from the rear. And we're gonna make sure that it comes out the front just like that, okay? So this is where it gets kind of interesting, right? We're gonna need a lighter or some kind of heat source. It's best to use like those torch style lighters because, you know, like they have a more controllable flame. But the trick is we got a little bit of a tail sticking out, right? Then as it heats up, we pull it and then pull it right on into there, and then it will create a little bulb on the end. And you'll see. Let's see if we can get this going here. Just like that. So now when you look down it, let me get this light. You can really see that front sight lighting up. So that's pretty cool. Then on the front, we're gonna take a set of cutters. And for this, I am just going to use fingernail clippers because these are going to be the easiest flush cutters to use for something like this. And there we go. Well, I probably cut that just a little bit too flush on the front, but there's a little bit sticking out. Then we're just going to heat that up and just let that bulb up. And then I press it with the lighter a little bit. That gives it a nice little seal. And let's make sure this is going to stay in place. I'm gonna heat that up some more because I don't want that coming out. But if you mess up on it, you know, you can just rip it out and, you know, you got more to work with. And honestly, like if you accidentally just screwed up really bad and used up all of your sticks, there's more available. I'll have links below. So there, we have that installed. Let's put our barrel back into place and let me turn this light out right here. There we go. So I have no backlight. But you can see how well it just zeroes up for you. There we go. Nice. All right. Well, anyways, guys, I hope you found some value in this video. I just wanted to make it real quick because I don't have any videos on how to install sights on a Glock. It's super simple. Probably the easiest gun to install sights on ever. But if you are interested in any of these tools or the sights or the shooter lube, anything I've talked about, all the links are down below. If you're on YouTube, just check the first link where you can go find them. I'll see you guys in the next video, and I love you, and you guys stay sexy.